Hello everyone, welcome to my new video. I've not done a video in a while. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mash McKenzie and I'm an unpaid carer. I tend to raise awareness on unpaid carers like myself, being that I would say I'm a particular unpaid carer in regards to mental health. I sometimes take time to raise awareness on mental health itself, although I'm no expert in mental health. It doesn't hurt for unpaid carers like myself to share some experiences. As you probably might already know, International Stress Awareness Week has just gone, and I really did wanted to do a video in order to help promote that. A while ago, probably going back some years, the International Stress Management Association were quite happy in me promoting about stress awareness. But it seems that I've certainly missed the boat for 2019. But nevertheless, I'm still going to do a video and help promote stress awareness. As mentioned before, International Stress Awareness Week is promoted by the International Stress Management Association, which is ISMA for short. Although we can say many other mental health organizations are free to promote it, I've noticed quite a few. Basically, the International Stress Management Association, ISMA UK, I suppose, is they actually are a charity, and they are the professional lead, I suppose, for stress management in the workplace, and also in regards to well-being. They usually work to raise awareness of stress and promote knowledge and best practice throughout the workplace and in our daily lives. International Stress Awareness Week actually runs, I believe, from the Monday the 4th to Friday the 9th in November. However, I think the theme for National Stress Awareness Week is resilience. And that is basically, I'd say, how one can deal with stress and work to recover from stressful situation or experiences. Now, I'll go on into more detail about recovering from stressful situations and resilience in a moment. In fact, looking around on stress awareness promotion, I've noticed a lot of mental health organizations and even NHS trusts promote how to deal with stress in our daily lives and also in the workplace. In fact, a little figure for you here. I believe it's every year, I think in the UK, there's an estimated, I think 16 or 17 million days are lost to stress, anxiety, and depression. So let me give you a quick rundown about the facts about stress, because I think the reason why stress is affecting so many people is basically not many people are aware how stress can affect them. And some people are not even sure what classifies as stress. In fact, I can go so far to note that there are many experts in the field of researching stress may not actually agree with each other on how stress affects a particular person. Basically, in a nutshell, stress is basically down to being unable to cope with too much pressure, be that mental or emotional pressure. Now, usually the common signs of stress can be a sleeping problem, eating problems like loss of appetite, and I think a number one cause is probably difficulty concentrating. I'll go a bit more into how stress can affect the body, because when you actually delve down and look into how stress can affect yourself, it's usually not just the mind, it does affect the body. And I want to go into that at a deeper level later on during this promotional video. As I've mentioned, the way stress can affect someone is you can experience racing thoughts, or you can worry constantly. In fact, stress can affect someone so deeply that they might even not be able to concentrate at all, and they might get more things wrong, which can increase stress on that person. Dealing with short-term levels of stress might be okay. It's not, it's not always a bad thing to have at least some stress in our life. In fact, it can just be a motivational factor to urge us on. But long-term stress can, and I believe, increase the risk to developing mental health issues. For instance, frequent amount of stress can also affect the body to the point where your immune system cannot cope much anymore. I believe also another driver in stressful situations is how one deals with relationships. And I'm not talking about relationships with your partner. It's basically friends, co-workers, family relationships, and so on. We always try and find ways to connect with each other, but when things go wrong, it can lead to a stressful situation. And as I mentioned before, just as a reminder, the right amount of stress can be beneficial, but if it goes on for too long or at a very heightened level, it can be a killer. In fact, I believe that they actually call stress the silent killer. Being that I'm an unpaid carer, I always try and tailor some of my videos in regards to how things affect unpaid carers like myself. And as you know, unpaid carers can suffer um, large amounts of stress as well as other mental health factors. I know sometimes I clash, unfortunately, with um, perhaps though, not everyone, but some on the mental health aspect, stating that those who suffer from mental illness can only be patients or service user. But I strongly disagree with that. I would say that we all have mental health, and we all can suffer mental health. Mental health, mental illness doesn't discriminate. It doesn't stay with that one person and they're labeled as a mental health sufferer. It can affect the expert, the health professional. It can affect anyone on the street. It can also affect the family and carer. But enough of that. I want to move on to the how stress can affect unpaid carers, because like everyone else, they can also be affected by stress due to what they're trying to do. And the first way I can think about how stress is affecting an unpaid carer is actually being overloaded in providing care. And this is quite common because unpaid carers cannot always easily find the resources in order to support what they're trying to do when they're caring for someone. When there's a lack of support and a lack of resources, the unpaid carer can find themselves trying to provide so much care that can lead to burnout and more stress. And it's not helpful. But later on in this talk, I will try and drum up on how an unpaid carer, in fact, how anyone can try and fight and take on resilience in order to deal with stressful situations. As mentioned before, the point of an unpaid carer is to sustain relationships. I've mentioned relationships, unfortunately, if things are not going so well, can add to a more stressful situation. And the point of an unpaid carer is that you're caring for someone, but sometimes things are just not going to work out, especially if you're caring for someone with a mental health difficulty or an issue. There will be situations where the relationship will be at risk, and it can be a stressful situation. Another stressful situation, unfortunately, is that being an unpaid carer, you will probably fight as much as you can in order to make sure that the person you care for can stay healthy and find some form of recovery. However, this is not often always the case. The cared for can unfortunately have declining health, which in turn leads to adding more stress on the person trying to care for them. You also have different types of carers. I mentioned the term unpaid carers, but what happens if that carer is also the breadwinner? So basically they're classified as a working carer. The problem would be that if you're caring for someone and you're trying to hold down a job, what happens if they're cared for, declines in their care, their health, their physical health goes downhill, you're forced as an unpaid carer to try and care for that person. And at the same time, unfortunately, it's going to affect your job. And as you know, a lot of stress can come from the workplace. This can add more stress on the carer who's trying to do not just the job where they're trying to earn finances, but also another job which they're trying to care. And even though some people don't think it's a job, caring for someone, it certainly is if that person is in very poor health. Talking about work, unpaid carers, unfortunately, not all, but quite a lot of unpaid carers do suffer financial issues. In fact, money worries is a major form of stress for anyone. So if you're trying to cope as much as you can, especially if the cared for was the breadwinner or was the person earning that money, you're going to have to find some resources in dealing with financial issues. And again, money worries is a major form of stress. And lastly, but not least, I think there's more I can talk about in regards to unpaid carers suffering stress. But these are the main ones anyway. If caring can become difficult, which usually can be, this can affect the carer as it would affect anyone else. That would be perhaps difficulty sleeping, your eating habits just go out the window. These are all very stress inducing. So I want to take a close look at how can stress affect us, not just unpaid carers, but everyone. And I think it's important to mention this is mainly because it's one of the key signs to turn around and finding resilience. You can't really take on something if you don't know what it is. So just to note, stress actually affects everyone differently. Some people can cope with more stress, while others, even just a little bit of stress, can be really detrimental to their health. One thing when it comes to how stress can affect us or anyone, I suppose, is it changes our emotional behavior. So it might be easier for someone to become more irritable, perhaps more angry, and being angry a lot quicker. Long-term stress can lead to someone picking up even more other mental health issues like depression. And if that stress isn't dealt with, or if the depression isn't dealt with, it can become more chronic. Stress can also affect the body. You might think it's always in the mind, but it's actually affecting the body. It can make one person feel very hot and sweaty if they're suffering from stress. Constant stress can affect the body in serious ways, and that could lead to like headaches, stomach issues, and high blood pressure even, and a lot more. But due to try and keep this video short, I'm not really going to go into completely how stress can affect the body in all sorts of other ways. And talking about time, I think I'll try and put something else in, like how I think one of the first rule in regards to stress is how it affects your breathing. So when you're in a stressful situation, you probably would breathe a lot rapidly. You breathe faster, probably due to your heartbeat increasing. So okay, enough talk about how stress affects someone and how it affects unpaid care and recognizing signs of stress. I think again the theme for International Stress Awareness Week is finding resilience. So how do you find resilience in dealing with stress? I'm going to be trying to be as quick as I can here and just throw in a few things that can be useful for unpaid carers and can be useful for anyone else who finds themselves in a stressful situation or would like to turn around and find resilience in dealing with stress. And the first thing I would say to a person dealing with stress, and I picked this up from a recent Carers UK conference. We had someone speaking about, I would say, therapy, I suppose. And the one thing that stuck out in their talk at the conference is using your way to breathe more efficiently. As I've mentioned before, when someone is going for a stressful situation, they begin to breathe rapidly. They breathe faster, and they might not even know this. It's just a complete reactionary response. So being able to slow down and try and breathe as much as you can in a way that's deeper and slower can actually be a way to distress and find resilience in coping with stress. There are other forms of also dealing with stressful situations, and that's finding something that you enjoy doing. In fact, many stressful situations are out of things that you don't particularly want to go through, that you don't particularly want to do. So I'm going to go through some things that I think would be useful in regards to slowly finding resilience in dealing with stress. And one thing would be hobbies. And I know some people find dancing can be quite useful in dealing with stress. Another thing is just going for a walk, especially in places where it's quieter and that you can be with nature, and it can be a relaxing experience, especially going to parks. Like walking in parks is something that I often try and do. Other activities could be exercise, which would be, as mentioned, dancing is a form of exercise, but also going swimming is another form that can be stress relieving. And you don't have to be completely physically fit to just go swimming. But if you are really fit, you can try and do some jogging. If you're not into all that exercise, um, laughter therapy can be good. It doesn't even have to be therapy. You could just laugh in regards to dealing with a situation. Look on the bright side of things. Laughing things off doesn't cost anything. Another way to deal with stress and finding resilience is listening to music. Can be a way of distressing, especially if the music is calming. And again, you do have music that's particularly tailored towards distressing, like therapy. Another one, and this is not basically, I would say, useful for everyone. Not many people would like it. Another thing is to meditate. But you don't have to be like a yoga expert. You could always just sit silently and try and declutter your mind. And yes, it's a form of meditation, but again, it's something that you can just turn on if you realize you're becoming stressed. If you have a pet around, it helps to connect with that pet. In fact, there's another type of therapy. I think it's pet therapy. I'm not sure what it's called, but it can be really helpful. And many people connect with pets in order to distress and find resilience in stressful situations. Other ways in dealing with stress is to also do other things that you can enjoy, which should be reading. Again, not for everyone, and I think it also depends on what you're reading, but the reason why I mention reading is it can be a distraction from a stressful situation if you read something that you enjoy, and it can take you out of constant worrying, constant frustration, constant stress. The number one rule in finding resilience is stress, is recognizing the signs, which is the reason why I talked about, what is stress and how it affects us, all the way down to how you're breathing rapidly, how you're becoming really hot and sweaty, your mind is racing. If you can recognize in that moment that you're becoming really stressful, then you have a chance of trying to distress it. You don't have to be in a situation where stress is controlling you. You can control the stress, but that is the number one rule, I would think, in recognizing the signs and finding that resilience. A few more that can come to mind is connecting with others. Basically, I'm moving more and more into peer support in regards to unpaid carers. And the reason why I'm saying connect with others is you don't have to cope by yourself. You can find resilience with others who who think the best for you. I'm not saying everyone does want the best for you, but if you find those that do, they can really turn a stressful situation around. So I'd say don't just cope with stress by yourself. Talk to your doctor, connect with friends, connect with family, be connected with others. In fact, going back to health experts, because I'm not an health expert myself, I always recommend speak to those that are in the know, that know how to deal with stress. They can talk to you about what situations you're facing, if you need to be referred in regards to dealing with difficult levels of stress or depression. It doesn't hurt to talk to a health professional. Other things in regards to finding resilience and coping with stresses, I've always mentioned, do the things you love, even if it's watching TV. You know, sometimes distraction might be the only thing you've got until you find a way to really cope in dealing with stress. I always say another thing would be to try and not just fight the end results of stress, but what happens before you enter into a stressful situation. If you can plan things in time and plan your way in regards to how you deal with something, that can avoid the situation or being put into a lot of stress. And I think lastly, you can also try and do gardening. I mean, I'm not a fan of gardening, but because it can take a lot of work and I tend to destroy the flowers and leave the weeds. But some people do find that very useful, and always say if it helps you dealing with stress, then please do it. So I want to wrap this up now. It's if you're unpaid care like myself, it's so important to look after your health, whether it's stress, depression, other emotional issues. Certainly look after your health, especially if someone is relying on you. Now, if you do not recognize or deal with stress levels, then stress will certainly deal with you in a not pleasant way. Your health will become a major factor in supporting others, let alone yourself. So to find out more about stress, I'd like to wrap this up by if you can visit the ISMA, which is the International Stress Management Association, on their site, which is www.isma.org.uk. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you again soon.